morning. Good morning. Get it right up here. Everybody set? Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. I'm joined today by State Fire Marshal Kevin Reardon, Director Sherry Maxfield of the Ohio Department of Commerce, Holmes Township Trustee Ron Miller of Crawford County, as well as Chief John Finley of the Malta and McConnellsville Volunteer Fire Department and Chair of the Ohio State Fire Council. I think before, though, we get started, we should have a moment of silence to pay our respects to Fire Lieutenant Philip W. Weigel of the Town and Country Fire District in West Salem. Thank you. As you all know, he was tragically struck and killed on Monday while working at the scene of an accident on I-71 in Wayne County. Lieutenant's death is a reminder of the danger that is faced by our men and women who work in our fire departments every single day. Our prayers are with his family and all those who love him. In this museum, surrounded by reminders of the past and present of firefighting, we're here to discuss the future, particularly the formation of a new task force that I am announcing today to examine volunteer fire services in the state of Ohio. A good, reliable fire service is essential to the health and safety of any community. Well-trained, well-equipped professionals provide a high level of service to the community and save lives and property in case of an emergency. None of us ever know when we're going to be in the need of such services, but we all want to be sure that when we do need them, they're there, that they're fast, that they are efficient. Fran and I live in Cedarville Township in Greene County. If something happens in our house in Cedarville Township, it's a Cedarville Volunteer Fire Department that is there. And we've had more than one occasion over the years for them to respond. When I was in the United States Senate, I was the lead Republican sponsor of the Firefighter Investment and Response Enhancement, or better known as the FIRE Act. The FIRE Act created the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. Since 2000, when the bill was passed, that program has provided more than $9.2 billion to fire departments nationwide. After that bill was passed, Fran and I had occasion to travel around Ohio and to visit many, many volunteer fire departments, dozens of them, and to see the men and women who do the great work of our fire service. Fire service costs and responsibilities, though, continue to increase, as do the number of calls, all of which are putting a strain on our departments. And, of course, the majority of calls are EMS. We rely today on our fire service and the men and women who respond for all kinds of emergencies that may occur in our families and with our families. As I travel the state, as Fran and I travel the state, we talk to township trustees, we talk to members of volunteer fire departments, we talk to county commissioners who tell us about the changing nature of volunteer fire departments and tell us about many of the challenges that today are faced by these departments. These challenges certainly include funding, training, recruitment, and equipment. To give you kind of an overview of the big picture, Ohio has over 1,000 fire departments, 1,180 fire departments. 605, a little more than half of which are solely volunteer services. And up to 70% rely on volunteers in some capacity. So we have some hybrid, we have totally volunteer, and then we have the others as well. Some departments are entirely volunteer and unpaid, while others provide some form of compensation, such as payment per call. Many communities, in fact, communities in 86 counties, rely on volunteers who work other jobs outside of public service, but respond to emergencies as needed. These are skilled, hardworking volunteers who are highly valued in their communities. We appreciate everything that they do each and every day to protect us. Unfortunately, these volunteer services are seeing changing times. Many of these volunteer service departments are in jeopardy. Many volunteers are aging and are leaving the force. Departments are experiencing a shortage of their replacements. Higher equipment and other costs and declining financial resources are straining volunteer services budgets beyond what existing levies, fish fries, spaghetti dinners, or in Cedarville, pancake breakfasts can cover. Training costs and scheduling create obstacles for departments and volunteers who are often working other jobs and also have families. So we need to look at these challenges and come up with fresh solutions. I asked Fire Marshal Kevin Reardon to assemble what we're calling the Ohio Task Force on Volunteer Fire Service, the Ohio Task Force on Volunteer Fire Service, to examine these issues and to examine the state of fire services throughout Ohio and to provide recommendations so that we can ensure the continuation of reliable emergency coverage for our communities. So today we are announcing the formation of this task force. And I will be in the near future visiting some of our volunteer fire departments around the state to hear even more firsthand from the volunteers and from the elected officials. Let me now turn to Fire Marshal Kevin Reardon, who will tell us more about the situation and the task force. Kevin?
Thank you, Governor DeWine. I appreciate your attention to this important issue facing communities throughout the state of Ohio. The volunteer fire service is in crisis. I hear the struggles time and time again as I travel throughout the state. Just like the governor said, equipment costs, staffing issues, and declining financial resources for a lot of these fire departments. They're creating a stress that has never been seen in the volunteer sector before. We reached a point where at some areas of the state, fire levies are failing. We're not used to that. That's something that seldom happens in Ohio. Here in Ohio, roughly 70% of the fire departments that we are responsible for at the Marshal's office are volunteer fire departments. So there are literally millions of Ohioans that depend upon the volunteer fire service to be there when they call 911. As a career firefighter, I know the fire service is very deeply rooted in tradition, but the challenges of today can only be addressed through forward thinking and some innovative solutions. There is no single greatest issue in the volunteer service right now. There are many. There are many issues, and together they are creating stresses that are very difficult for some departments to deal with. This is not only an Ohio issue, this is a nationwide issue. But Ohio can and will be a leader in finding some solutions to some of the problems within the volunteer fire sector. We are looking forward to the task force identifying those issues, looking at them in depth, and coming up with some solutions to how we can make the situation better so that we can secure this valuable service for future generations of Ohioans. I want to thank you, Governor DeWine, for your leadership and your commitment to the fire service. And I also thank the task force members. We're looking forward to working with you as we start down this road. Thank you again, Governor.
Kevin, we have other speakers, so.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to invite the Chair of the State Fire Council to come forward, Chief John Finley.
Thank you, Marshal, and thank you, Governor. It's an honor to serve the state of Ohio on this task force, and it's wonderful that you have recognized the fact that we need so much help in the volunteer fire service. I am from a very small community, Malta and McConnellsville, and it's one of the smallest communities in the state of Ohio as far as county-wise population. So it's an honor to serve you here today and honor to serve on this task force. I can assure you that I will listen to volunteers across the state and do everything I can to help and assist in this task we have before us. It is critical as the volunteer fire service is quickly dying on the vine. And if we don't save it, we will lose it completely. And communities cannot afford a paid fire service in every small community across the state. So at times, there's people that goes without the help. I've served in my community for 40-plus years, and I've never seen as critical a time as we are now for the lack of volunteerism in the community. So we're hoping to take this information forward and do great things with this task force and really help the volunteer fire service in Ohio. So thank you all for your support as well.
Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions. We have a lot of expertise behind me, so. Yeah.
You mentioned this isn't an Ohio-specific problem. Are there best practices or things in other states
Well,
are doing?
one of the things, I'll let anyone jump in here, but one of the things that I'm challenging this group to do, and we've already started talking about, is frankly just to see what other states are doing. One of the glories of our 50 laboratories of democracy, so we can see what other states are doing. But they do have certainly these challenges. So I've asked the commission to take a look at that. Anyone else want to talk about that?
Good morning. I'm Ron Miller, a trustee in Crawford County and Holmes Township. I want to thank Governor DeWine and his team for convening the Ohio Task Force on Volunteer Firefighters. Volunteerism is an issue of vital importance to Ohio townships. Many townships still utilize volunteer first responders because it's the only way to keep fire and EMS services operational. According to the National Fire Protection Association, 67% of firefighters nationwide are volunteers. It is very similar in Ohio in your statements. 95% of those individuals serve communities of 25,000 people or less, but nearly half of all volunteer firefighters protect small rural communities with less than 2,500 people. These individuals are providing an essential service nationwide in our townships here in Ohio. However, the number of volunteers is declining each year and could lead to a real crisis in provision of safety services, particularly in rural areas. In many cases, these are life-saving services that our communities cannot go without but can't otherwise afford. I've served as a township trustee for 27 years in Holmes Township and as a volunteer fireman for 20 years. I'm an officer on the OTA board, and again, on behalf of myself and the OTA, we want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. And I'd like to personally invite you up to the Holmes Township Volunteer Fire Department for a tour and meet with our firemen. Fran can bring a couple pies and we'll have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else want to comment about what other states are doing? Again, that's one of the things that we are going to look at on the task force. Okay. Other questions?
What conversations are you in with the legislature, including HB 564? It seems to be a small piece of this, but it's about part-time versus full-time classification and health coverage, and supposedly I think the goal is to alleviate some of the problems you're discussing. I've heard testimony on that. That's only one piece. I imagine there are other discussions there. So.
Well, the members of the legislature are certainly aware of this problem. They see it in their own districts. They have certainly mentioned it to me and to our team. So, it shouldn't come as a surprise, I think, to anybody that this problem exists. Legislators see it, when they go out and in their own communities and talk to volunteer fire departments, members of the fire departments, they also see it when they talk to their trustees and when they talk to their county commissioners. So, you know, obviously, any solution that this group comes up with, you know, legislation will probably be needed. And, you know, we continue to, you know, we'll work with the legislature on this as we move forward.
What is the timeline for recommendations?
Well, yes, as fast as they can do it. What they've told me is, and we will release to you, if we haven't already done so, the names of the people who are going to be on the task force. You'll get that this morning. You know, these are all people who have jobs, and so, you know, they can't just meet every single day. So, you know, I've told them that we need to have a sense of urgency. I certainly would like this done before we get into the next budget. Because if there's any of the recommendations that have budget implications, we need to know that before the next budget. So that would be my goal. Anybody else?
Unrelated questions.
Yeah, other questions?
Shocking.
I guess we can first start with former President Donald Trump is set to come here next weekend. Will you be in attendance?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I made a commitment to be in Georgetown that day. They're kicking off on Saturday, on that Saturday, celebration of Ulysses S. Grant's 200th birthday. I made a commitment to be there, Fran and I. So we'll have to kind of see how that schedule works out.
The other question I have for you has to do with House Bill 616. It's a bill that's been introduced by a pair of Republicans in your party. Has to do with restricting teachers on how they can talk about sexual orientation, gender identity, as well as critical race theory and other quote-unquote inherently racist concepts. What's your thoughts on that bill?
Yeah, I want to talk in general about, you know, what I think, and none of this is going to come as a surprise, I think, to any of you who've been to a lot of press conferences. You know, these bills change. We'll see what happens. The legislature's not going to be in session for a few more weeks. You know, basic principles. Look, I don't know anyone who thinks it's a great idea to be talking to first graders or second graders or kindergarten children in regard to sex education in school. I just don't think that that's the proper role of the school. So there's certainly some things that we could all agree on. You know, as far as the bigger issues in regard to what teachers can do, can't do, we all want the same thing, I hope, for our kids, and that is what we want for our kids is for them to learn history, to learn about the U.S. government, essential documents of our country, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers. We want history to be taught, the good and the bad. So, you know, these are some of these issues that we're hearing about in the legislature, we're hearing about from parents. Parents are not only the first teachers. You know, we want parents to be directly involved in what goes on in the schools. They have every right to do that. It's their child. So those are kind of just some general principles. I've articulated these before. You know, I prefer to talk about general principles at this point as the fact that the bill may change and will change probably as it moves forward. So we'll be weighing in on it.
Do you support it in its current form?
I'm not going to get into that. You know, I don't comment on every single bill that's introduced, as you know. I think what I'm trying to do here is to outline what I think and what I think reflects what parents think. I look at this from the point of view of a father and a grandfather, and think that, you know, if my kids were in school or my grandkids now are in school, what would I want for those kids?
The people running against you in the Republican primary say that they can do a better job as governor when it comes to the economy. What do you say to voters when it comes to the current state of Ohio's economy?
Well, first of all, we've come out of the pandemic because of the actions that we took during the pandemic. And I talked about this during the pandemic. I said, you know, we want to come out strong. We also want to keep people safe. That balance, I think, is reflected in the fact that, you know, we've received, for example, the endorsement of the Ohio Restaurant Association So we took actions then. When the pandemic started, we cut spending. When the pandemic started, we froze hiring at the state level, state employees. As a result of those prudent conservative actions that we took, we have come out of this. We were able to have a balanced budget. We did not have to tap into the rainy day fund at all. We've been able to cut income taxes by over $2 billion for Ohio taxpayers. We have the highest bond rating that we've had since 1979. Intel coming into the state of Ohio is only one example, but it's sort of a symbol of the fact that Ohio is on the move. We are on the move because we've kept taxes down. We are on the move because the regulation is a good regulatory climate. And we're on the move because of all the other great assets that we have. We're seeing companies come off the East Coast and the West Coast. They're looking to expand, and they're looking to the heartland, and Ohio is in a great position to compete. You know, we have won the Site Selection Magazine Award 2 years in a row, and I could go on and on. So this is a great time to be an Ohioan. It's a great place to start a business, great place to raise a family, great place to be. So we're moving in Ohio. So that's my answer to them.
The issue of Reynolds, Butler County Auditor Roger Reynolds has a lawsuit currently that alleges that the Department of Commerce, if I've got the right agency, pressured counties to raise income taxes by 20% starting in 2020. And he was saying that they were basically, their arms were twisted to do that, and that the current charges against him are kind of political reprisal, but I'm not interested in that. It's more about this question of your administration pressuring counties to raise income taxes to shore up pandemic losses.
I know nothing about that. No. Okay, well, I missed it, so I'll have to read it as soon as I get out, and we'll see if we can have some reaction for you. So.
Butch Valentine, Laurelville Fire Department. We're in the village of Laurelville. Community is 500 people.
I know Laurel. My law partner came from Laurel.
I'm glad to hear that. Place of the Laurelville Fruit Company and the apple cider. But we cover 4 townships, 3 in Hopkins County, 1 in Benton County, with an all-volunteer fire service. I'm only here today because I retired 2 years ago from work, so I'm around a part of the time. To the committee, one of the things our county did several years ago, so we didn't get the EMS service, was the county took over and took the start and has the Hopkins County EMS. That relieved my department of having to run an EMS facility.
I'm sorry, who took it over?
The Hopkins County Commissioners.
Okay.
It was originally the Southeastern Emergency Medical Service, and the Hopkins County Commissioners took it over, and it's ran ever since. So that alleviates my department from going on EMS calls, but because of their response, we get several firefighters have to go out, first responder, or to assist them. One of the big issues we have is the Hocking Hills parks. ODNR is understaffed at that area. When they have a person from Cleveland, Pennsylvania, or out of the state come down and fall or slip at the parks, EMS gets called in, ODNR gets called in. We get called in to assist for that carryout. I've had people down there for 6 hours in January with the ice, trying to get people out that's broken ankle or broke a leg. And I would like to personally see that ODNR could get more staffing at the park system. And I think if the committee, I don't know how other volunteer fire departments run in the county or in the state, but I know Fairfield County, Ross County, most of those departments have EMS tied to the fire service. If those counties could look at taking over the EMS services and alleviate the fire service from having to run that, in my opinion. But anything that could work out.
Look, I appreciate that, and this is the type of input that we want. It's the type of thing that we hope will come out of these hearings. They're going to do hearings. They'll have the opportunity to hear from people all over the state. You know, so, and I will also have a discussion based on what you just said with Director Mertz. I think she probably agrees with you that they could use some more help there.
We were able to build a new fire station that moved out of our main station we've been in since 1954. The only way that happened, we had a lady that lived in the village for 100 years, wasn't legal, left us a third of her estate, which ended up being $647,700. We moved into a brand new 60 by 100-foot metal structures, all clear span steel building in January the 15th.
Wow.
So it's a major move for us, but it wouldn't have happened without her help.
Thank you. Thanks for the input.
Governor, do you support the legislative effort to amend the Constitution and require courts to consider public safety when setting bail?
Yes. You know, look, historically, judges have been able to consider public safety in regard to the setting of bail. I think with all due respect, the Supreme Court's decision was a wrong decision, but it is the decision, and it is what the law is today. So we have to deal with that decision. We have to respect that decision, but we have to take action to allow judges to once again do what they have always been able to do, and that is take into consideration the safety of the community in setting bail and setting bond.
Governor, a question on the capital budget. Do you have a number that you're mulling for that, and might it include the second primary costs?
Well, I have not really thought about the capital budget as a source of the second primary, so I haven't had any discussion with anyone really in regard to that. Well, we'll have some more in the future. So.
Mentioned the response and the action that you took during the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that happened coming out of it. Of course, when people go to the polls and make their decision for who they want to pick as governor, they're going to be considering all these things. What is your message to voters who maybe oppose the action that you took during the COVID-19 pandemic and the actions that you might take in the future when it comes to public health and safety?
Yeah, look, I respect people's opinion. Everyone can have their own opinion. It was my responsibility as governor to take the actions that needed to be taken. I think if you looked at how Ohio approached the pandemic and how other states approached the pandemic, I believe that we had a proper balance between public safety and also allowing people to make their livelihoods. If you compare us to other states, I think that we did a very good job in that area. We recognized the fact that our urban schools were not going back and did something that I don't know if any other state did, but we came up with it as a mechanism to get our kids back in school. And that is, we told our schools that if they would agree to be back in session on March 1st, that we would make sure that any adult personnel in their building that wanted to be vaccinated would be vaccinated. We did that basically during the month of February, and were able to get our schools back with only a couple of exceptions, and they came back in a couple of weeks. So, that was one of the things that, I'm proud of that we were able to do. Ohio came out of the pandemic, and, I always hesitate in how you talk about this, because I think we have to respect the lives that were lost, the families who lost loved ones. So you never want to say that, you have to acknowledge the tragedies and the tragic deaths that occurred in Ohio and across the country. But we're well set for the future. I think if you look at what's happened since we got vaccination, for example, and everyone had the opportunity to be vaccinated. If you look at how we're moving forward exceedingly well. While the public's attention, very understandably for 2 years, was really focused on the pandemic, when the majority of the news was based upon the pandemic, and that's, again, very understandable, we were still focused every single day, not just on the pandemic, but we were focused on how we prepare Ohio for the future. We were focused on early childhood education, early childhood development, all of the things that we outlined in State of the State, all the things that we outlined in the inaugural speech, all the things that we outlined in our budget. All that was going on at the same time that we were dealing with the pandemic. The Intel negotiations, if you just look at the Intel negotiations, you know, those were all occurring obviously during the pandemic. So a lot was going on. Ohio is moving. You know, this is a great place to live in, and we have a great future.
Jumping back to Trump real quick, are you seeking his endorsement or support in the primary?
Sure, would love it, but you know, we love anyone's endorsement. So love the former president's endorsement. Sure, absolutely. One last one. Go ahead.
So I figured
This is the second shot from Dan, so I got it. When he hits me twice, I got it. You know. I'd love to stand here all day.
You brought up Intel, so I'll bring this up. Former Congressman Steve Stivers, who runs the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, said that House Bill 616 would be a deterrent in bringing the best and brightest to Ohio. Are you worried about the message that this could send to corporations like Intel who are trying to attract people?
I think I've given my answer on that bill for today anyway. So thank you all very much.